Freddie Mercury, who died tonight from AIDS.
When you hear the name Freddie Mercury, what comes to mind? The Prince of the Stage? We Are the Champions? A great rock star? Yes, all of that is true. But there's one woman whom Freddie called the love of my life. And here's the interesting part. This woman never became his wife. Her name is Mary Austin. And believe me, you can't fully understand Freddie Mercury without knowing this story. Imagine 1970, London. Freddie is not yet Freddie Mercury, just Farrokh Bulsara, a young artist living in London with big dreams. No money, no fame, but dreams. Big dreams. And Mary Austin? A simple 19-year-old girl. She works at a fashion boutique called Biba in Kensington Market. Her family isn't wealthy, they're simple people. Her father is a wallpaper trimmer, her mother a housewife. One day, Freddie comes to this store. Some sources say he came to buy a shirt that day, others say he just came to browse. But the result is the same. He sees Mary. And you know what happens? Nothing. I mean, nothing immediately. Freddie is shy, and Mary is just doing her job. But there's something. Freddie's eyes won't leave her. Friends say that Freddie came to that store several days in a row, sometimes without buying anything, just to see Mary. Finally, he gathers courage and asks her out. Mary accepts. You know where their first date was? No fancy restaurant, no expensive place. Just a walk in Kensington Gardens. Two simple young people. Two hearts who don't yet know what great story they're opening the door to. It wasn't long before they started living together. Where? In a tiny apartment on Victoria Road in London. One room, small, very modest place. Money is very tight. Freddie hasn't yet found success with Queen. Mary works in the boutique. Sometimes they don't have money for food. Sometimes no money for heating. But Mary says she's never been happier in her life. Freddie would bring her small gifts every day, sometimes a flower, sometimes cheap chocolate. But you know what Mary remembers most? Freddie would write songs for her. He'd sit up nights creating new melodies with his guitar, and Mary would sit there beside him, listening. In 1973, Freddie buys her an engagement ring. Yes, he wants to marry her. They make plans, family, children, future. Mary says, Freddie told me that everything would be perfect with us. We would live like ordinary people, have ordinary happiness. But look at fate. Sometimes life has other plans. 1974 arrives, and everything changes. Queen's song Killer Queen becomes a big hit. Then Bohemian Rhapsody comes and explosion. Freddie Mercury is no longer just Farrokh. He becomes a world star. Newspapers, concerts, tours, money, fame. Mary says that Freddie didn't change. Do you believe it? Despite all that fame, all those people screaming, when he came home, he was still her Freddie. But something was changing, slowly, invisibly. 1976. Freddie and Mary are still together, still happy, but Freddie is fighting an internal battle. In America and Europe of that era, homosexuality was still a big taboo. People lost their careers because of it, were rejected by their families, and Freddie was trying to understand his own feelings. Mary says she felt something changing between them. Their physical intimacy decreased. Freddie was becoming more distant, spending more time on tours. At the end of 1976, one night Freddie tells Mary they need to talk. Imagine that moment. Two people who have been together for 6 years, built a home, made plans, and now Freddie tells her, Mary, I think I'm bisexual." Mary later said, "In that moment, my world collapsed, but at the same time, everything fell into place. All those little details, all those changes, now they made sense." You know what Mary answers. She doesn't cry, doesn't scream, doesn't slam the door. She simply says, "No, Freddie, you're not bisexual. You're gay." And Mary is right. In 1977, they officially separate, as a couple. But here's something interesting. They never really separated. Freddie buys Mary a large apartment in West Kensington. He moves somewhere else, but he calls every day. They meet every week. Freddie says, "Mary is my only true friend, the only person who loves me without money, without fame, without wanting anything." And believe me, these weren't just words. After the breakup, Freddie starts openly having gay relationships. He has famous relationships: auto mechanic Tony Baston, his manager Paul Prenter, and so on. But you know what's most interesting? Every time he started a relationship, Freddie would call Mary first. Every time his heart was broken, he'd go to Mary. For every big decision, he wanted Mary's advice. The press would write, "Freddie Mercury's new lover, Freddie Mercury's nightlife." But Freddie knew where his true friendship was. In 1985, Freddie meets Jim Hutton. Jim would be his last and longest relationship, 7 years. And who do you think is the first person to introduce Jim to Mary? Freddie himself. Mary later says, "Freddie wanted me to like Jim. His approval was important to him." Of course, Mary tried to live her own life too. She married a businessman named Piers Cameron, had 2 sons, Richard and Jamie. But the marriage was unsuccessful. They divorced. Then she got engaged to a businessman named Nicholas Holford, but that relationship didn't last either. Mary later says in interviews, no one could compete with Freddie. No one could fill that void. And when she says this, she's not talking about romantic love. She's talking about friendship, about being understood, about deep connection. In 1980, Freddie buys a large house in West Kensington, London, Garden Lodge. 28 rooms, big garden, luxury furnishings. In this house, he throws big parties. Celebrities come, champagne flows. But you know whose room Freddie secretly keeps in this house? Mary's. Yes, one of the best guest rooms in the house is reserved for Mary. She has the key. She can come whenever she wants, stay, feel comfortable. Jim Hutton later writes in his book, "Mary had more rights in the house than I did. Freddie considered her family." And did this create jealousy? Of course. There was tension between Jim and Mary. But Freddie wasn't willing to change this. In 1980, Freddie buys a large house in West Kensington, London, Garden Lodge. 28 rooms, big garden, luxury furnishings. In this house, he throws big parties. Celebrities come, champagne flows. But you know whose room Freddie secretly keeps in this house? Mary's. Yes, one of the best guest rooms in the house is reserved for Mary. She has the key. She can come whenever she wants, stay, feel comfortable. Jim Hutton later writes in his book, "Mary had more rights in the house than I did. Freddie considered her family." And did this create jealousy? Of course. There was tension between Jim and Mary. But Freddie wasn't willing to change this. 1987. Freddie is diagnosed with AIDS. At that time, it was a death sentence. No treatment, no hope. Freddie hides it from the public, even hides it from the band for a long time, but he didn't hide it from Mary. Mary says, "He called me and said I had to come. When I went, I looked at his face and understood everything. Nothing needed to be said." From that day, Mary becomes the main support during Freddie's illness. She visits him every day, brings his medicines, talks to doctors. Jim Hutton was living at home with Freddie. He was caring too, but Mary dealt with the family, external affairs, legal matters. Final days. November 1991, Freddie gets very bad. Walking is already difficult. His weight has dropped to 40 kilograms. His eyes can barely see. November 23rd, Freddie announces to the public that he has AIDS. 24 hours later, he dies. Who was by his side in the final days? Jim Hutton, the home nurse, a few close friends, and Mary. Mary says, "The last night I held his hand. He couldn't speak anymore, but he squeezed my hand. He knew I was there." November 24th, 1991, evening, 6:48 p.m. Freddie Mercury dies. The world loses an icon. Music loses a legend. Jim Hutton loses his lover. Queen members lose their friend. But you know what Mary Austin loses? She loses her family member. 20 years of friendship, the love of her life. A few weeks after Freddie's death, the will is opened, and everyone is shocked. Freddie's fortune was approximately £75 million. In today's money, approximately $250 to $300 million. And everyone expected this money to go to Jim Hutton, the 7-year partner, or to his family, or to be divided equally among everyone. But no. The will states Garden Lodge House to Mary Austin, 50% of Freddie's fortune to Mary Austin, most of Freddie's personal belongings to Mary Austin, large portion of recording royalties to Mary Austin. What does Jim Hutton get? £500,000. Just that. To the family, £500,000 each. To friends, small gifts and items. But Mary gets everything. Jim Hutton is furious. He can't believe the will, says it's unfair. He was by Freddie's side for the last 7 years, cared for him when he was sick. Freddie's family isn't happy either. They accuse Mary of influencing Freddie. The press writes, "Mary Austin stole everything. Freddie's lover faces injustice." But Mary says nothing, gives no interviews, explains nothing. Because she knows that Freddie knew what he was doing. Before Freddie died, he had told Mary, "You are my wife. Of course, we didn't marry, but you are my family member. You are the only person who loves me without wanting anything." And in the will, Freddie wrote, "I leave all my household items and half of my estate to Mary Austin, because no one has loved me the way she has, and I have never loved anyone the way I loved her." When you read this, your heart aches, doesn't it?
Freddie had wanted one more thing in his will. He wanted to be cremated, burned, and his ashes, he hadn't told anyone where his ashes would be kept. Only Mary knew. Freddie had said, "Take my ashes and keep them somewhere no one can find them. I don't want my grave to become a pilgrimage site. I don't want people coming to cry over my death." In December 1991, Freddie's funeral takes place. Small, private ceremony. Only the closest. Then, the crematorium. Mary takes the ashes and disappears. No one knows where the ashes are. Jim Hutton doesn't know. The family doesn't know. Friends don't know. Mary had said, "This is the biggest secret between Freddie and me. I will never tell." until 2023, 32 years later, still no one knows. There are some theories. Some say she keeps them in a secret place at Kensal Green Cemetery. Some say she buried them in Garden Lodge's garden. Some say she sent them to Zanzibar, his childhood home. But Mary doesn't speak, and won't speak. This is her final loyalty to Freddie. Final service. Final love. Mary Austin is 73 years old today. She still lives in the Garden Lodge house. Freddie's belongings are still there. His paintings, clothes, pianos. She hasn't remarried. Says she doesn't want to. Her children are grown, have their own families, but Mary still lives alone, in the big house, among memories. She rarely gives interviews, and every time she speaks, she says the same thing. Freddie is my best friend, still. I talk to him every day. I remember him every day. She protects Freddie's legacy, his music, his memory, his honor. When the Bohemian Rhapsody film came out in 2018, Mary was a consultant because she knew Freddie better than anyone. Some say Mary is a very happy woman. Close to $50 million in wealth, big house, comfort. But you know what Mary herself says? I'm the richest but loneliest person in the world. No amount of money can bring Freddie back. She lost the love of her life. Twice. First time in 1976, as a relationship. Second time in 1991, forever. But she gained one thing: immortal friendship, immortal memory, immortal love. Friends, what did we learn from telling this story? Love is sometimes deeper than romance, sometimes stronger than sex and marriage. Sometimes the greatest love is setting each other free. Freddie and Mary never married. They didn't have a sexual relationship for many years, but they never abandoned each other. Mary accepted him with his whole identity, his whole truth, didn't judge, didn't force, didn't try to change him. And Freddie showed her lifelong loyalty, not with money, not with gifts, but with his heart, with trust, with being by her side, even in his final breath. Was this a love story? Yes. Was this a friendship story? Yes. Was this a loyalty story? Yes. But most of all, this is a story of humanity. When you hear Queen's song, Love of My Life, now you'll know who Freddie was thinking of when he wrote it. Love of my life, you've hurt me, you've broken my heart, and now you leave me. Mary Austin, the love of his life. Always. If you liked our video, don't forget to hit like. If you want more secrets about Freddie, write in the comments. Let's prepare the next video. Thank you. See you in the next video.